Hey everyone, Laurel here, Minnesota Zone 5A. I'm just going to do an update tour. End of June, it's June 30th today. So things are looking good and there's some new blooms opening up. Look at the veggie garden here real quick. The zucchinis are hot and heavy here, getting lots of them now, as is the case with zucchini. Carrots are starting to poke up. I still have some seedlings under the cages. I'll probably wait a while to pull those up because the carrots should do fine. Peppers, not a great year for peppers. I think it's staying pretty cool in the evenings. We've gotten just so much rain. These two are doing good. These were the earliest ones I planted. They're in the new raised beds. I have been cutting zucchini leaves away from them to hopefully keep them free. We've got garlic, still only 1 or 2 leaves on most of them is dried. You wait till there are only about 4 leaves left not dried, and then you can harvest, so a few weeks yet. Potatoes here are blooming and starting to set fruit. The berries are toxic, but I have it on a stand this year because I've had so many issues with voles and other rodents getting at them. And I thought about getting those mesh bags, but they just crawl right up the side, and then burrow in from the top. So I had to elevate the whole thing. So far, I don't see any signs. So hopefully I get a good harvest this year. More peppers over here. Shallots coming along, starting to bulk up a little bit. They're not quite forming big bulbs, but it's early yet. And I've got lots of pea pods. I need to harvest these guys today. I was going to yesterday, but I got so busy. So sugar snap peas, I like the Cascadia variety. I've had good luck with Cascadia. And it looks like an errant snow pea. I have one vine that's giving me snow peas, so an errant seed must have been in my seed pack, which is fine. I did plant the snapdragons down here that are blooming now, along with some basil. My poor cucumber. I got one vine. It looks like a couple other seeds germinated down there. And this little pepper that I planted in the ground right before we got a week of just deluge rain. Not looking so good, but the ones in grow bags look better. So I'm not sure. That one's pretty yellow. I might switch it into this little empty grow bag there. They tend to do well in grow bags because they like to dry out a little bit in between waterings. Move back over this direction. I did start cutting back this Nepidux. It was looking real crispy. I have to cut back some more. I just got kind of tired and stopped. You can see it kind of flushes out from the base and it'll form a nice little mound. Usually I plant a little perennial or not perennial, an annual in there because they're starting to go on sale right now. The yarrow's still blooming, really pretty, that sort of magenta fuchsia pink. Then I have that was a salvia. What's the one from Proven Winners? Fuchsia, something, fuchsia or pink. Anyway, an annual salvia back there. The sage leaf willow is having a good recovery year with all this rain. I love that icy green color. And then you can see this little patch of bee balm. I intended that to just be temporary while these other things, the Sun King Aurelia, that grows really fast. I mean, this got up to size real fast. And then that's a limelight hydrangea back there. So I figured, I knew these things would all touch, but I planted that bee balm a couple years ago just while there was a bare patch, so I'll probably move that soon. And then we have a volunteer squash down here. I don't know what kind it is. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. Beautiful white fluffy blooms back there on the astilbe. And the lady fern's looking really good. The designer jeans hosta still kind of has that burned look on the leaves. And I don't know, I don't have anywhere that's really full shade, maybe way back in the corner back there. But then you can't see it. So I don't know if that's burned or maybe sometimes that's just what the foliage does. The viburnum is blooming. Looks nice. I think some things are stressed from the rain. This heucherella looks a little bit not so great. So it could be just too much rain. And then these Brennera down here, the one that I wasn't sure if it was going to survive, definitely kicked the bucket. So I did order, I tried moving it up a little ways. I think I'm going to scrape back the mulch, build up that slope just a little bit. I did order a new one. I got wholesale through my uncle, so I have one to replace it, but I think I'll try and make that slope a little flatter so it doesn't, because it was pretty soggy when I dug that one up. Then we've got bloom stalks, not yet opened yet, but tons of blooms are going to be on these Megadalias still be. I'm really excited for those because they are absolutely gorgeous. And lots of buds on the firelight hydrangeas, so those will open in the next few weeks here. Heucherella onyx or obsidian. I think it's onyx. I think these are onyx, and I think the one up front is an Heuchera obsidian. Sensation sky blue salvia, still looking nice. Pretty blue blooms. I wouldn't call them sky blue, but oh well. And then these, man, there's some bug damage on the drops of Jupiter, but doesn't seem to bother them. They're starting to bloom as well. And this patch of echinacea opened up, or started opening. So I can tell these are all self-seeded ones because they're kind of pink and watermelon color. The original ones I planted here were red. I think they might have been Kismet red, although I got them on clearance because they were labeled with the wrong variety name. They were labeled as yellow, so I don't really know what they were, but they looked like Kismet red. But they self-seeded. I have some other white ones and some other sort of pinky ones, and they must have cross-pollinated, but the self-seeded ones are amazing. They're so tough and sturdy. These poor little geranium are not liking it so much. I planted these in the ground because I had so much luck with a couple geraniums that I planted last summer when we were in major drought. Now here we are just soaking wet. But oh well, I think they'll be okay. This Nepeta, this is what my other one did too. I think this rain's a little much for it, so I'll come in and cut that back pretty soon. I did plant that new James Britannia Safari. I forget. There's Dusk Sky and something else, but this is the new one this year. It was just languishing in its can, so I just popped it in there. The Nesia Inca Nemesia looks great. And star of the show right now is the Bee Balm Monarda. I think this one is Bubblegum Blast. I'm pretty sure, again, it was a clearance plant, unlabeled. But that was the variety that Gertens had the year that I bought that, the hot pink variety. So I think that's what that is. This one is so low maintenance, so I just leave the seed heads up. I really don't have to do anything to it. It does get kind of powdery mildew, but I don't know, it doesn't seem to bother it too much. The Millennium Allium seed heads are popping up. Seems a little bit early, but who knows? Every year's different. The geranium, hardy geranium, Boom Chocolata is done blooming, but I kind of like how the seed pods look. They're kind of decorative too, so I think I'll leave that up until those start to brown. I'm guessing it's sterile. Usually those hybrid patented varieties are for proven winners. This little patch is just starting to color up. This is Speedy Sonnet Purple Snapdragon. We've got, this is a Coreopsis that I got on clearance. I think it's Jethro Tull, but it wasn't labeled. Or no, it was labeled with that. I just didn't know why it was on clearance. So I think it's Jethro Tull. And then more Nesia Inca Nemesia and a little patch of Dusty Miller. Some other things coming up. I just love that hot pink next to the barberry. And then the variegated dogwood in the background. This whole little area this time of year is just very pleasing. You can still see some color on the Caradonna salvia behind the bee balm there. A little bit of purple. It's starting to go over, but I don't usually cut it till they go brown. And then that is a North Pole Arbovita. And then that grass that I thought maybe wasn't going to come back did. I think, if I remember right, that one's called Northwind Panicum. It's always kind of marginal in the shade, and now it's definitely in more shade because I've let this dogwood fill in. So we'll see. Maybe I'll move it. another clearance find. We've got the white echinacea starting to open as well. I did put some plant supports where what I think were the feral cats came through and crushed down a whole bunch. This one was all laying down on the ground, so I put a plant support, and then I put that little ring behind those and kind of propped them up. So a lot of this, I had 3 original plants, and then they've just kind of self-seeded, like that's what this one is up here. Kind of funny to have an echinacea right next to the hosta. But I think, well, and it's less shade with the spruce trees gone this year, which is why I've kind of let these shrubs get a little bit big to shield those hostas this year. I'll probably trim them back next year though, because they're getting a little too much. And there is some burning on this blue hosta. You can see the blue is starting to kind of burn away. That one normally hasn't had any issues, but it gets more sun now in the afternoon with the spruce trees gone. So love that one though. And again, this ageratum, these 2 got crushed by the cats, or what I think were the cats coming through. The others are looking good. Autumn frost hosta, one of the most sun tolerant hostas out there, still doing good. And then I did get a couple clearance blew my mind evolvulus plants that I think I'm going to pop in here amongst the ageratum. And I popped one, and then I bought 2 more of these Persian shield, because these poor forever purple heuchera, I don't know if they're going to make it. They're looking pretty rough. So for now, I can just fill in with that purple foliage. I think this dicentra back here also is getting too much sun. It's one of those variety that's supposed to bloom all summer and be able to take more sun. But I think with the spruce trees, it's just too much. I think this year, luckily, we're getting lots of rain, so these things are pulling through. Next year, I want to plant an evergreen kind of back there. And then a crab apple, but it's obviously going to be a number of years before those fill in. I cut back the Biokovo geranium, looking a little rough as well. That'll probably fill in more as the season goes on, but I think I'm going to look for some clearance annuals to pop in here. I might put these Rudbeckia. These are ones I started from seed, the caramel mix. I just love the colors of these. I'll be buying these every year and growing them because they are so beautiful. So along with the Dalmatian cream foxglove are going to kind of go in here. Everything else is looking good though, including this heuchera that is, I think it's called Silver Gumdrop. It's a Proven Winners one. And then this Giles Van Hees Veronica actually is looking really good this year. Normally it gets mildew, and this year I saw some signs of it, but now I don't see any. So I think moving it was a good change for it. It gets a lot more airflow over here, and those pink blooms that pollinators love. Trevi Fountain looks pretty. Got the dicentra here. This is just a white bleeding heart, starting to go yellow. So slowly I kind of cut that back, and then that'll free up the fragrant bouquet hosta back there. Blue drinking gourd looking the best it ever has, despite the scorch on its leaves. I did move this little heucherella that I planted last year in what was an open spot, and this year, due to the rain, this hosta is so much bigger. And I also discovered, let's see if I can, another seedling back there from the Trevi Fountain. So that's exciting. So I popped this heucherella in here. I don't know if it's going to get too much sun. We'll see. And then the striptease hosta, another heucherella. This is a newer Aurelia Sun King. And then this is Bone Set. It's a type of, I think I'm going to move that, not this year or maybe in the fall, over to the other side so it's in more sun. I just moved it out of the way for the trees to come down, but that's a type of Joe Pye weed. Is it Eupatorium? I think it's Joe Pye weed. I did remove the strawberries and cream ribbon grass from over here. I decided I just don't want something that takes over quite that much. So I had one Calamagrostis overdam that I planted, or that I had bought last year and overwintered. And then I bought another one with the Gertens June coupon. So I have a couple of those back here. This poor yew. That was a clearance plant last year, and then it lost a lot of its needles this year, but it is putting on new growth tips, so I'm just going to let it be and do its thing. Yews take well to pruning, so maybe once it gets some size on it, I can prune it. That's a Nova upright yew. I just put this blue tarp down to kill off the scrubby grass that was in this area, and I cut back a bunch of branches on. This is just volunteer trees, so I'm slowly cutting those back. You always got to have a corner where you can like kind of dump stuff, This is, what are those little prairie, what are those grasses called? I also moved this out of the way of the spruce trees, but we've got native bee balm here coming up, native monarda, purple blooms. Then it'll get powdery mildew and I'll cut it back. 3 of the Cheyenne Sky, calamagrostis grasses. And then I planted some new things over here. So we've got the Pachysandra with wild violets coming up, that kind of self-seed. This is the clearance Atlantis hosta that I got at Gerton's about a month ago. Popped that in there. I have to do some weed control. I don't want to plant anything up against the fence because I have to get in there constantly to cut this stuff back. I cut there's one I can't reach, but some massive buckthorn growing just on the other side of the fence too, so I cut that back. We've got the bronze leaf wax begonias, and then I also got 2 hostas wholesale through my uncle again. So this one's cool. I'll put my shadow on it so you can see. This one is called First Blush Hosta. Okay, maybe that's not, I don't know. Can you see? Really cool because it has red stems, but then the red goes into the leaves. So kind of a new red hosta. So I wanted to try that one. Kind of pricey, but I got it wholesale, so I justified it that way, I guess. I planted another autumn frost hosta. And then this is the mystery hosta that I inherited from my stepmom in the container that I moved over to give it some space to spread out. I think it might be guacamole. I have a feeling it's going to get big, so I wanted to give it a little bit of space. And one of these is Royal Wedding. I don't remember which of these 2. I have to look all this stuff up. We've got the Solomon seal kind of arching over everything. The Blue Angel hosta in the back there. I'm leaving this elderberry kind of draping over to give it more shade. Whole bunch. I'm surprised these ferns are doing so well. These are all Japanese painted ferns, and they get a lot of sun now. Like this whole area is in the sun for a lot more of the afternoon than it used to be. So I don't remember if this is Maui Buttercups hosta. I have to dig out. I think somebody suggested that I should do a hosta tour, which I think is a good idea, but I have to dig out all my tags. I remember most of them, but not all of them. These 2 are praying hands. Love that curly foliage. And then a little blue mouse ears that I bought on clearance at the end of last summer. I don't know if I can. Anyway, sort of shielded. The Clematis is looking gorgeous. That's Jackmanii. Yeah, Jackmanii Clematis. Basket's starting to fill in here. Last year I had this is Whiteout Superbena and Supertunia Latte, and they looked so beautiful all season in here. I really loved them. I had a trailing Lophos. This year I decided, because when this little Clematis, well, it was smaller last year, but when it bloomed, I liked it so much alongside the Petunia with that like burgundy throat. So I decided to plant Supertunia Mini Vista Midnight to kind of take over once the Clematis is done. So that's the plan. Hopefully it all works out. And then I have a lotus vine on this side. Another view of the Clematis. Man, we had just a couple really windy days, so finding big Clematis petals all over. They're kind of in this garden down here too. You can see I have a trellis attached to the laundry pole. The red dragon GM is sort of tipped over. That's the first time this one has bloomed, so I'm pleased about that. Got a variegated Brennera, and that's Rainbow's End hosta back there. Really beautiful. one. I really like that one a lot. Almost looks like painted like watercolor or something, the variegation on the leaves. And then back here, I have a couple, three. I could just cut these back, some Jacob's ladder, because they were done blooming. So now they'll hopefully flush back out in their beautiful foliage. Let's see, we're gonna, before we go the rest of the way, the elderberry's still blooming, but I'm going to go back over on this side. So we've got the sweet tea heucherella. These are looking really full and luscious this year. Loving those. That volunteer salvia that I started from seed a number of years ago. And we've got the aronia, low scape mound hedger, I think is what it's called. And I finally moved just last night the limelight prime hydrangea. It was in that spot that's kind of bare because it was just going to be too crowded in here. I decided to plant this aronia and some other things, so I didn't want it to get crowded out. So anyway, I moved it. I've got some annuals to pop in here, and then I did get, again through my uncle, a blue juniper to put in that open spot, so I'll have some evergreen interest. That big hosta is just spectacular. It's definitely getting more sun this year and a little bit more burned on the leaves. I just transplanted in the spring, but I love that bold texture. And propped up this phlox because it had flopped over from all the rain, but it's doing good, looking nice. It's an opening act phlox. Started pruning on these. I really like these cat's pajamas nepeta because they're already putting up new blooms before they get trimmed back. And the foliage, I mean, granted, this is only, I just planted them in the fall, so I don't know what they're going to do when they're more mature. But the foliage didn't brown and split open like the other ones. It just stayed nice and started putting up new growth before I had even touched them to trim. So if they continue doing that, that's a really nice feature. I like that they stay more petite too. And let's see what else. We have blooms about to open. These are the Sunseeker's Salmon Echinacea. I just got those on clearance in the fall. I like sort of the pre-bloom texture. This seems really early too because this is a goldenrod. So usually those bloom about August. But they're already kind of forming blooms, so I don't know, we'll see. The Amsonia, just a couple blue petals left. The lilies will be opening in a few weeks, I think. I did prune back the peach drift rose. Kind of its first flush of blooms is done, or I deadheaded it rather. I didn't prune it back. These, so it's gotten bigger than last year. So this Veronica is a little bit too close to it, but once those bloom stalks are done, I'll prune those back too, and that'll give the Veronica a little more space. Kind of looks cool together though. So did cut a little bit. This is the Noblesse Yarrow. I think Peter Cottontail is another cultivar of this. That's not what this one is. I think Peter Cottontail stays a little bit more dwarf. But again, clearance find. Gerton's clearance find, my favorite place. Mid-season, they have the best deals. Started trimming lightly on the Weigella because its blooms are done. This sedum looks gorgeous. It's gotten huge. That is Night Embers sedum. Then we've got some snapdragons that came back, resprouted in the limelight, little lime hydrangea. And man, look at the bloom stalks on these daylilies. These are now, I'd say these are now fully mature, but those are going to be gorgeous. They have never been this tall before. That's crazy. So this is going to be a beautiful scene shortly. Right now we have the nice Barbara Harrington Clematis still in bloom in the background. I am looking at taller trellises so it can climb all the way up that wall instead of folding over, and then a lot of the blooms are kind of hidden from view. But we're going to have, so there's one volunteer echinacea back there that opened up, but the rest of these are sort of peachy pink as well in here. These tend to get mites though. They don't harm the plants, they just eat the petal. You can see how that it's kind of malformed and missing some of its petals. This one looks like it's barely putting any out. That's what those mites do. So the best way to control it is when you see those bloom heads, because they all kind of gather. They're microscopic. They're not visible to the naked eye, the mites. But they live on the bloom heads, eat kind of where the petals come out, and then you have a bloom with no petals. So what's the point? And then the mites are multiplying. So best thing to do is just deadhead those flowers when you see them. So I'll cut those off and throw them away. My white ones were like that too, and I continued deadheading for several years, and now they bloom nicely. So more of the night embers sedum. I'm going to have to move that third one that's now getting encroached on by the daylily. Anna's Magic Ball Arborvitae. Drumstick allium, just starting to put little purple, little bit of color on the top there, a little purple. The Holy Grail hibiscus is looking beautiful. And of course this coreopsis, really stunning this year. Really, really nice. They kind of look like Bidens. I love that, like a big Bidens bush. This one is mature now, just full of color. Very cheerful. It blooms for a really long time. I did cut back the aster another time. Now I'll just leave it because we're getting towards July 4th, so I don't want to start cutting off blooms that it's forming. And a few more blooms opened on this phlox. This is the Luminary Opalescent phlox from Proven Winners. Smells really nice, but you can see all those bloom stalks. It's about to be very colorful. Daisy May Daisy looking pretty. I still need to move some of these self-seeded 4 o'clocks that are coming up around them. But look how cheerful those are. And I love it next to that purple Prince Alternanthera. The Mighty Chestnut Daylily also. That one is, I think I just transplanted that last year. But all of these cosmos, I'm letting a few of these come up around the azalea. There are a few left in the back. I did transplant some back there. I don't know what kind they are. They self-seeded from last year. And I started planting the dahlias. This whole area is still really, really wet. So I tried to plant the dahlias high. I've learned that. The tubers do not like to be wet, so I plant them high. But they're doing okay. I mean, when I was digging in here, it was just soaking and smelled kind of that rotting vegetation smell, like swampy almost, decomposing stuff, and it was just chock full of worms. So, but they're okay. Today I'm gonna, because we got more rain on Friday, so still wet, but today I'm gonna get the rest of these planted along with my other seedlings. Well, there's my trowel. I was looking for that. I left it out here. A few more. And I think that's it for back here. I think I might do a second just container garden tour soon because things are starting to fill in. Oh, I'll go up the honeysuckle. Boy, this view is really nice right now. Lots of color in there. Love that. I love this, that Noblesse Yarrow, just those white, a little bit see-through blooms. I'm excited to get my blue juniper in there. Sort of, I got Troutman juniper. I'll show you. I have it here on the patio. Sort of a slower growth. Well, it's more medium growth rate, I think. Got the Bobo hydrangeas full of blooms. These get a lot more sun since I move them. The salvia is getting eaten by bugs, but it's getting big. Super impressed with the Hoopla Vivid Orchid petunia. It's really strongly branching and just looking really lush. I'm sure I will have to trim it as I do all petunias mid-season, but that has been great this year. GM are done blooming here, just that one little bloom stalk, so I pruned those back. Same thing with the dianthus. Stuff is looking good. The honeysuckle, I've been inspecting it. Last year I had honeysuckle aphids, and I didn't notice because they're not real noticeable unless you're looking for them. But towards the end of June, I think it was, this thing just became swarming with bees, all different species of bees, and watched it for a few weeks and realized they were going after the aphid honeydew, like the sweet secretion that aphids leave. And it was like that all season, and I couldn't spray it down because the bees, it was just covered. I mean, every species of bee or wasp that lives in Minnesota seemed to be on this thing. So I didn't want to spray it. I'm going to do that today. I think just give it a really hard spray with water. I might put some neem oil on too. I've been seeing ants all over it, so I think the ants are after the honeydew now. But yeah, I couldn't really do a whole lot in this area because there were just bees everywhere, like swarming bees. So I trimmed a lot of the branches back so that I could get in there a little bit more. Just really hard spray with water, but it takes forever because it's massive. I mean, that's why I don't know if I'll do neem oil. I mean, I can't get everywhere. This thing is too big, so I don't know. So this is the juniper next to the arborvitae here. Troutman juniper, really cool shape, gets these blue berries on it. Takes well to pruning, but it only gets 10 to 15 feet tall, but only 2 to 4 feet wide. And if you get these stray branches that stick out, you can prune them. So I like that one, and it'll get full sun. Only thing I worry about is moisture. I know they like dry soil, and that, I mean, nowhere in my yard has dry soil, but I hope it's not too wet for it, but I just will have to see. The back and black sedum are looking nice. I planted this Senorita Rosalita Cleome in here. I think I am going to move that grass kind of over a little bit from the Rudbeckia chunk that survived. Still waiting for this one to bloom. I'm not sure if that is another chunk of Rudbeckia or a weed. But I don't want to pull it until I know for sure. Then I've got all the little self-seeded alyssum that I just let kind of take over as a ground cover in here. I leave it all winter so the seeds can drop. Another fragrant bouquet hosta. I'm hoping soon I can get after these phlox in here. They are putting out blooms, but they're getting powdery mildew, and obviously they're, there's no room for them anymore. So I would like to get those out, but instead I planted this one, the opening act phlox from Proven Winners. Looking nice. The lamb's ear is in full bloom now. I know a lot of people don't like the blooms, and I understand why. I mean, they are a little scraggly looking, but I like them, and the bees love them, the pollinators love them, so I like to just leave them before I cut it back. You can see there are bees all over it already. I did cut back some of the blooms on the Alchemilla mollis lady's mantle in there, especially the ones that were encroaching on the lamb's ear and then that St. John's wort. I freed that up, and the Leotris is going to bloom soon, so I wanted to free that up. I cut back hard all the branches on this dogwood that were leaning over from all the rain, so it's looking much thinner now. I just love the berries, and they're starting to turn white, so I want to leave some of those. I hope I don't have to cut back more branches. But I suppose if I do and I cut it back hard this year, it'll just have more berries next year. I don't know. We'll see. This hosta is massive. That was a mystery hosta. It's the same one that's out in that back garden by the little lime hydrangea. I do like to leave some of these dogwood branches long so that they shield. That's a Vulcan hosta. That one really scorches quite badly if it gets too much sun. These two hostas are now taking over. I might have to split these, but I have a curly fries in there. This is another fragrant bouquet hosta over here. And then I have a mini skirt hosta, a little mini one hiding underneath there. And another autumn frost. That one's getting encroached on now by the fragrant bouquet. The fragrant bouquet isn't like looking, it kind of has a gap in the middle once they get too big. It's still looking healthy, but I think I'll probably cut some chunks out and make it a little bit smaller next year. And then Desdemona ligularia back there. Another water-loving plant, so it is liking all this moisture. Although this tends to be drier a little bit with the arborvitae roots in the area. And then we've got turtlehead chelone. This blooms late summer. It's like end of August when this is blooming, you know summer is coming to a close. So it's kind of bittersweet. Really pretty blooms, but a little bit sad because it's kind of like the last hurrah of summer. And then this is, oh, I didn't mention it before. I have in previous videos, but that's a tiny wine 9 bark. I didn't do a whole lot of pruning on it this year, just dead stuff, but I might, probably next spring, I'll size control it a little bit. The best way to size control is to prune out entire branches because it has, you can see how it has that beautiful arching habit. So you don't want to just sort of shear back the ends of all the branches and try and make it, it just looks wrong. It's not supposed to be, you know, sort of rounded. It's supposed to be arching. So if you prune out whole branches, then you maintain that arching habit, but you can thin it out and size control it a little bit that way. Yeah, it's even growing like up against the house. So time to do that. And then the penstemon blooms are just about done over here. I like the dark foliage with those pink blooms on them. But I let those, these are all self-seeded back here. So I let the seed heads grow and fall as they may. And I think that's it for the backyard tour. Creeping Jenny here, that's a zipper heuchera. I do have another zipper here that's being kind of choked out that I want to pull out and put over here next to this one. If that is a weed rather than a rudbeckia, I will probably plant it there, but we'll see. So I guess that is all. You can kind of see the container garden filling in. Also, May Day annuals are now on clearance a few places. If you're local in the Twin Cities, Fratelloni's Ace Hardware in Arden Hills. That's the only Ace Hardware I've seen with like a big garden tent. They've got tons of proven winners. They're also supplied by Gertens. All of their annuals right now are 50% off, so I picked up a couple trays of proven winners. They were $3.50 each. Some other annuals that were like anywhere from $2.25 to $4. So I'm kind of filling in there. Also, where else? Oh, Garden City. Their tents. You have to go to gardencitygreenhouses.com, find their locations around the Twin Cities. Tents that pop up in parking lots. That's the type of business they are. They are also not super clearance, but like their proven winners are 30% off. They've got other annuals 30% off, tropicals, a lot of their shrubs. I think their Monrovia perennials are 30% off as well, something like that. So they're starting to mark things down, and they kind of progressively do better sales as the season goes on. It seems a little bit early. I feel like every year's different though. Sometimes they don't start till after 4th of July. Sometimes they start about now. But so yeah, if you're local in the Twin Cities, go snatch up some annuals, rescue them from clearance before they get thrown out, and plant some beauty in your garden. So anyway, I'll leave you with that. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day, and please subscribe.